All right, guys. So the Sony ZV-E10 Mark I is about to go back right now. I'm literally about to wipe the camera down just a little bit and pack it back up in the box and take it back in probably the next 10 minutes, or literally right after we get done doing this video. It's going right back. But anyway, I wanted to just give you guys my final thoughts on this camera, as well as let you know if I would purchase this camera in general, because that's what we did with the M50 Mark II. And again, the M50 Mark II versus the ZV-E10 Mark I is what, the two cameras that I'm kind of looking at or thinking about, getting as a small secondary camera. So first and foremost, I just want to say this camera is very, very small, and the grip on this thing is very small. If you really need a small camera, then I think the ZV-E10 Mark I is going to be for you, okay? If you just need a small camera about this size, this is going to be for you. Is this camera for me? It is for me. It has a few things I don't like about it, but I feel like it's for me. Just like I feel like the M50 is for me. Honestly, I feel like I can get in any one of those two cameras and I think I'll be fine. But I'm trying to keep my focus on this ZV-E10. So I'm gonna just talk a little bit about some things I like and dislike. I'm not gonna try to do it like these are all the things I like, these are all the things I dislike. I'm just gonna kind of ramble off here and hopefully you get something from it. All right. So first things first, the grip on this thing, I didn't really care for the grip. I feel like if you're going to be taking photos and video with this camera, I feel like you need to put a cage on it, hands down. And the reason why I say that, because if you're taking photos and you put your hand, like let's say if you try to put all four fingers on there just like that, this finger right here, this pinky finger is going to always fall off. And if you want to align this finger to take the photos, you almost feel like you're doing like a two finger here and one up there, or like a slant. So this is what it kind of looks like when you actually start taking photos. That's what it looks like. So I just want to throw that out there. Do I like that? It doesn't really bother me as much, but that's just something that I kept noticing. I didn't have to do that with the M50 Mark II. I had to do that with this camera as far as how to hold it because the camera's so small. I like the fact that this Sigma 16mm looks really good with this camera. Paired with this camera, it just looks really good from the video quality to all of the photos. I also like the satisfying photo click that you get from this pressing this button. It's more satisfying than the M50 Mark II. And again, let me make sure I say this. I'm only giving you guys things that I think that is important to me, or that's important to me from the standpoint of like if I would buy a camera, what are some of the small nuances that I would notice? Because the longer you have a camera, the more you start to notice things that you really didn't care for and that you really don't like. And those things can start to bother you. So that's why I'm mentioning a few random little things like that. But anyway, one other thing I didn't really care for is the 4K 30 crop. I don't like that at all, to be honest with you guys. I don't even shoot in 4K 30, so it wouldn't really affect me. I'm more of a 24 frames per second shooter, and I rarely shoot in 1080 60 or 4K 60. I don't really need stuff like that because I'm not doing too much regarding slow motion and things like that. Sometimes I shoot 60 just because I just want to do it. But for the most part, you can always catch me at 24 frames per second. But I didn't like that 4K 30 additional little crop that you get with that. I also didn't like the fact that when I put a monitor up here, like my monitor on this camera, and I go to 4K 30, I didn't like that I was losing the box around my eye. Again, that could have been something that I was creating on my own. It could have just been something I was doing wrong, but I didn't like that. But I did notice when I switched the camera back to 24 frames a second, the box would come back with my monitor. So, the little tracking around my eye. So, that's just to be mentioned. The battery life on this camera was pretty good. I didn't really have any issues. I just felt like it was pretty good. It wasn't bad and it wasn't good. It was just like in between, like in the middle. I do not like the stabilization and the rolling shutter and all of that stuff on this camera. I hated it. I really did. And no matter what I did with this camera, because I use this now, mind you, I only made a handful of videos with this camera, but every single day for the past time I've had this camera, I've had it in my hand doing something with it, whether it's just been playing around in the house, shooting little random videos of stuff just to see what the quality looked like, just to go outside and play with it. Stuff that I just don't post here on YouTube. I take it outside. I'm constantly taking 60 photos of like the plants outside and moving the camera real fast and kind of running around and seeing what I can do with this camera. And I feel like you would need a gimbal with this camera, or you would need callus brows, hands down. And I know a lot of you guys know this stuff because the ZV-E10 Mark I has been out for a while. Another thing too is that I did actually like, which is weird because I said I don't like the grip, but I do like the ergonomics of the camera. Like I do like how small this camera is, and I feel like it would fit really well with my, my 90D and like my ZV-1 and stuff like that. But for the most part, guys, I don't have too much to say about this camera because it's been kind of beat up over the years. Like as far as 1,000 videos out there, man, I just want to give you guys my personal take on this camera. One other thing I did like, let me throw this out here. I do like the fact that if I put my quick release plate here on the bottom, I can still get to my battery. So that was a plus. My battery, my memory card, that was a plus too. Another thing too, because it's starting to come to me even more. Make sure you turn the heat, the temperature setting on, because I was sitting outside and this camera overheated on me really, really quick, shooting in 4K. It overheated on me really, really quick. But once I turned that setting on, I didn't have any issues from there. But overall, because I don't have a whole lot to say about this camera, I just don't like the stabilization, the fact that it really don't have any stabilization. The digital stab is pretty decent, but I just didn't like that. That's all. But if I had to sum this camera up, all right, let me just sum it up right here. Let's just sum it up. This is the perfect camera for this studio environments, office/studio environments. You can easily get the best footage possible out of this camera. And on top of that, B-roll shots is really good with this camera too. Just kind of panning around and looking at things. B-roll shots is really good, especially when you're not like super running gunning and you just kind of like, I did it a handful of times when I was sitting in my office. I'd take my ZV-1 and I would just like point the camera at it and just kind of get some nice B-roll, get up close to it, and I would just pan around it and stuff like that. And man, it's flawless. I mean, it works perfect for that. I just don't feel like it's good for vlogging, like walking and vlogging. And I know that could be just the lens, because this lens don't have any stabilization. The camera stab is not that great. So this is not the right combination for vlogging. Like, it's just not the right combination for vlogging. Can you get the vlogging done? Yes, you can get the vlogging done. But it's not going to be your all-day camera. This is not what you're going to go to vlog. If you're going to vlog, you're probably just going to get like a ZV-1 or even just use your iPhone. You know what I'm saying? Or a camera that has some better stabilization than this camera here. But for talking head stuff and office stuff, this camera is like a workhorse. This camera is perfect for this. I had this camera sitting there with my Canon 90D at, doing in-studio tests and, in-office tests, and it just worked so fine, man. And like, I just liked it. And the 4K out of this camera looks great. I'm talking, it looks amazing. And that's one of the things that was lacking for me in the M50 Mark II was the 4K. But mind you, I only shoot in 24. That's what I shoot. I like to shoot 24. So having 4K is a good thing. I have 4K on my Canon 90D. I got 4K on my ZV-1. And, if I was to get this camera, I would have 4K too. But, that 4K looked good. I really like it. And I mean, you really can't beat this. Like, as far as the M50 Mark II, I feel like the only thing that the M50 Mark II lacks over this camera is that 4K. I feel like the stabilization in the M50 Mark II was a little bit better than this stabilization in this camera, because this camera, like, rolling shutter was horrible, but it wasn't that much rolling shutter for me in the M50 Mark II. So I feel like if I had to pick between both of these cameras, I think it would come down to what type of shooting you want to do. If you want to actually take some photos and have a viewfinder, then you're going to go with the M50 Mark II. If you want a camera that's going to be perfect for in-studio shots and give you 4K and stuff like that, then you're definitely going to go with the ZV-E10. But see, in my case, I'm looking for a camera that I could take around with me that can do the best of both. Because if I'm out with my family vacationing, I want to be able to do a little bit of light vlogging without any rolling shutter. And I also want to take some really good photos. And I think that's where the M50 would kind of, to me, beat this camera out, because it can do both of those really well. Even though you're shooting at 1080/60, it can do both of those really well. But I feel like this camera beats it because the 4K on this camera looks amazing. Not only does the 4K look amazing, the pictures look good too. So then you go back to the M50 and you feel like, well, how would you get the M50 Mark II over the ZV-E10, or like vice versa? Like how would you choose? And for me personally, I feel like they both have their own type of use case. I feel like the M50 is just going to give you some quality photos. You're going to have a viewfinder. It's going to have a little bit better stabilization than this camera. At least for me, I felt like that. And I feel like the 1080/60 on the M50 Mark II, you can upscale it to 4K, and I feel like that looked really good. So you can get that camera and you'll be totally fine. But I feel like this has its place. And I feel like for me personally, I would get both. And going forward, if I do not, because I don't plan on going with the ZV-E10 Mark II or anything like that. If I don't get the ZV-E10 Mark I or the Mark II, I'm just going to say it in general, I might look at something like the A6700 in general. Now, if I don't get any of those, it'll probably be the M50 Mark II and the ZV-E10. I might just scoop them both and have one on the shelf and just kind of switch between the two. So anyway, just some thoughts on this camera, man. I wanted to make sure I came back and touch bases with you guys, because I really felt like I didn't get really in detail with this camera as much as I wanted to, because softball season started at the high school. My son practiced. I was moving around so much, but I was taking this camera with me, and I just felt like the things that I was doing with this camera wasn't really worth kind of making videos about. You know what I'm saying? So I just want to kind of sum it all up, man. Just give you guys like all of my thoughts into just crunch down into one video, man. So there you have it, man. M50 Mark II, ZV-E10 Mark I coming to a close. We'll see what happens in the future, whether I get one or the other or both, like I said. And we'll see. And then we'll go from there, man. But anyway, I'm going to get out of here. I got to go take this thing back, and I will catch y'all in the next video. I'm out. Peace.